Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Today, you'll notice that I have a special guest here with me. It's not just going to be me talking the whole time. Today, I brought in my friend, Liz Stapleton. She is a pro at all things blogging. She's been in this game as long, maybe longer than me. So she knows very well what she's talking about. And our subject today, we want to cover all things related to legally protecting yourself as a blogger, as a creator, as an online business owner. So there's a lot that kind of fits under that umbrella. And in a moment, I'm going to kick it over to Liz. But to welcome y'all today, I'd love to hear where are you tuning in from? Where are you watching us from? What's going on in your world? Liz, where are you at?
I'm in Washington State. So, like I said, I'm actually not in my office. I'm visiting family at the moment.
Nothing wrong with a sewing room background. I like it myself. Goes to the core of makers, right?
Right? Yes.
I love it. I'm in my usual setting here in the mountains of Colorado in Salida here, and I want to show you something that I'm very excited about. I've got this nice new nifty
I love
little
it.
neon sign, the
Yeah.
Right Blogger
It's
logo,
like, that's amazing. So
that I'm
on brand.
super pumped about. You know, sometimes it's these little things that just add that little spark of like, ooh, all right,
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy in my workspace.
I think all of us, like online people, we kind of curate our backgrounds.
Yeah, you
So,
gotta. If you're
yeah.
gonna
You're like,
spend a
why
ton of
is
time
it
in your
just
space.
myself behind my camera?
Oh, I love it. Awesome. All right, so we got some people tuning in. Debbie, you're in Southeast Texas. Yes. Thank you. Andy, St. Louis. All right. Tavis. Oh, so awesome to see you here, man. All right. Cool. Well, we're going to get this started. For those of y'all joining later, we will also make time for Q&A. This is going to be recorded. So if you have to pop out, you can come back and catch whatever you've missed. But the way that today's session is going to work is Liz is going to be talking through her presentation on all things protecting yourself legally online, and then we'll make time for Q&A. So there's no wrong time to ask a question. If you have a question, please pop into the comments, ask it. I'll be keeping an eye on things to make sure that if it's relevant to something we're talking about live, we may pause, we may address it, or we'll hold it for the end. But either way, we'll have plenty of time. So Liz, I would love to kick it over to you.
All right, let me get my screen going here. Uh-huh. Let's go.
Here we go.
All right. Can you see?
Looking perfect.
Okay. I'm just popping over, make sure everything's good. Okay. All right. Did it switch? Okay, perfect. Yay. Hi guys. Super excited to have you guys here. As he said, my name is Liz Stapleton. I started blogging back in 2014. I'm actually coming up on my 10-year anniversary. And I started blogging because I had a lot of student loan debt and I entered the personal finance niche. And my student loan debt came from law school because it's expensive. And so eventually, though, I kept seeing people in the blogging space really not understanding the legal things and passions collided. And so, like most bloggers, I started another site. Um, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I've spoken on this topic for years at various in-person and online conferences. Um, you can always learn more about me. I met Ryan when we actually, I think he emailed me like out of the blue once actually about like a roundup he was doing. And then he spoke at my summit for my other site, Blogger Breakthrough Summit. So super excited to be here. Before we start, I do have a workbook for you guys. If you just go to elizabethgibson.com/workbook, you don't have to like sign up for anything or use your email. It should just literally make you a copy of the workbook in Google Docs. So that way you have a place to kind of take notes because I am going to cover a lot of information. Um, I also
Perfect. And I've dropped the link to that in the comments so you can click on
perfect.
it and jump right over.
Yeah, it's literally just a Google Doc. It's not like a submit a form, wait for it to show up in your email thing, um, because that would take forever. We don't have time. Before we start, I do just really want to encourage you because this stuff is super important. It doesn't have to be scary or hard. I'm very pro making it as easy as possible and as understandable as possible, but it is important and it does require a little bit of focus. Okay, lastly, before we start, I do just want to point out that while I'm an attorney, I'm not your attorney. Nothing presented here is meant to be legal advice. It's really educational and informational purposes only. My goal is to really arm you with the knowledge to, if you do hire an attorney or you get to the point where you need to, you can ask the right questions. All right, so that's kind of our goal here. This is informational, educational purposes only, not legal advice. All right. And then because I do really love rewarding action takers, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a link where you can get my affiliate disclosures made easy, completely free, like no purchase necessary, just to make adding affiliate disclosures to emails, blog posts, etc. easy if you struggle with that. So let's go ahead and put your mind at ease. Here's what we're going to cover today. And I talk very fast. Fortunately, that means we won't take too long to cover all this, but it means I do talk fast. So we're going to start with how to properly disclose affiliate relationships for every kind of post. We're going to go over why you need a privacy policy, and this is coming out more and more because I think we're up to about 16 states now have enacted data privacy laws specifically. So we'll talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about GDPR as a CPA, which is perhaps the most well-known state-based data privacy act. I think the most recent one is from Maryland. I'm not sure if it's actually been enacted. I think it was waiting signature. We're going to talk about the basics of copyright and trademark, legal requirements of email marketing and list building. We're going to talk about what terms and conditions are and if you need them, so you can kind of make that educated choice. And then what you should know about disclaimers in order to limit your liability, protect your blog. Finally, we're going to touch on the BOI reporting requirements, which is important for US based businesses. And then finally, we'll just touch on AI disclosures as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to encourage you to take a deep breath and remember that this stuff is important, but it doesn't need to be scary or hard. Okay. So, how to properly disclose affiliate relationships for every kind of post. So, the key element here is that language matters, position on the page matters, and size matters. So, what I mean by language matters is I know as bloggers and online business owners, we say affiliate marketing, affiliate link, we know immediately what that is. But you need to think back before you entered this space if you understood that term. And chances are you didn't. It's actually kind of the jargon of our space. So saying this might include an affiliate link is not really informing your readers what that means, unless you blog purely about affiliate marketing and your entire audience is like, they know what affiliate marketing is and they're just learning strategies from you. Chances are saying this is an affiliate link is not going to be sufficient. You need to use language they'll understand. So you could say this is an affiliate link, meaning I earn a commission if you purchase through my link, right? Like that's more clear. Um, and then position on the page matters as well. So the FTC, which is a federal trade commission that runs, that basically provides the rules on this, says it needs to be before they can click on the link, and it needs to be like easy to see. You can't be like minimizing the font. You can't be trying to hide it. Really, all of the legal stuff, guys, comes down to being open and transparent with your audience. Like when in doubt, be open and transparent. But so it needs to be, like I said, above the link, or which is why some people will put it in their sidebars. But you got to remember that if someone is looking at a site on mobile, the sidebar actually gets pushed to the bottom, which means your disclosure would not be before any links they could click. So keep that in mind when you're deciding where to put it. And then, like I said, size matters. You need to make sure it's not teeny tiny. It needs to be at least the same size of whatever paragraph text you're doing. Okay. So, good rule of thumb, if your grandmother wouldn't be able to see it or understand it, then it's probably not clear enough and it's too small. Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, I always kind of like that too. Okay. The other thing is this applies to social media emails, not just blog posts, right? So when it comes to an affiliate disclosure in social media posts, many social medias platforms limit the number of characters you can do. So you can't, you're like, I don't have room to write, this is an affiliate link, meaning blah, blah, blah. So what you can do is use terms that the general public understands. Hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored, hashtag paid partner. Those are all examples that would work. But again, it needs to be before the link. So it can't be buried in a sea of hashtags. I've seen some really great examples where it literally starts out hashtag ad, the copy, the link, and then whatever other hashtags. Like that is perfect. If you want, you could do the copy, hashtag add the link, and then other hashtags. But again, you want to make sure it's visible. Again, always strive to be open and honest and transparent with your audience. Okay. I will say, I think the biggest mistake I see is affiliate disclosures in email broadcasts because people will put it at the bottom, right? Like at the very bottom of their emails. And that is not FTC compliant. Again, it has to be before the link. It doesn't need to be the first thing they see in the email. If you have a certain area in your newsletter wherever that you do links, you can just put it above that. What I like to do and what I recommend doing is creating like a content snippet that you can use over and over again. I use ConvertKit, so they allow snippets. But that just makes it easy so that you're always consistent with your language. It has everything in there. Often what I do is I will put it at the top, but then I make sure that I'm grabbing some copy from the email to put in the preview text so that the first thing in the preview text isn't my affiliate disclosure. That's kind of how I do that. But don't put it in the bottom of your email after the links. That is not compliant. Alrighty, so privacy policies and what to include. Basically, you need one. So for a long time, there isn't actually a federal law in the US that's like, you need privacy policy. But more and more states, as I mentioned, are saying, hey, yes, you need to provide a privacy policy. It's got to have these things in it. And there's, of course, international laws, GDPR, which came into effect in 2018, really rocked the blogging world. I will dive more into that in a bit, but really you need one is what it says. Privacy policy, what it does is it's telling your audience what data you collect, why you collect it, and how you use it. And I will say, I was hoping to put together like a nice little chart to show all the different states and kind of when it applies and what they require, because one of the things in these state-based privacy laws that's coming up is the option for people to opt out of targeted advertising. And that is, but a lot of times that doesn't apply. It like only applies if you're targeting people in that state and you have like 100,000 people on your email list or something, or you're processing the data of 100,000 people. That doesn't include like purchases, right? So like doesn't include your like customers. Or I think in one state it's if you are earning more than 25 million a year, which I'd say most bloggers aren't making quite that much. So in a lot of instances, the state may, unless you have a somewhat larger blog, you're in the 100,000 page or sessions people range, you might need to pay a little bit more attention to that. And a lot of that is coming into effect in the next couple of years. And there's a few going into effect in July. But it all comes down to
Liz, I want to pop in with a question here from someone on our stream. So Dinky Bakers asks, is this the same for all countries, or do the legal requirements vary country to country with this?
Yes. So I know that's not very so what these laws are doing is basically ensuring the rights of people that are located there. Sometimes they have to be a resident of the country, the state, whatever. But like GDPR, you don't have to be a resident of any of the EU. You just have to be located in the EU. Like if you're there on vacation or like so GDPR I'd say is the most stringent, and if you're complying with that, you're in pretty good shape, with exception to some of these other new laws coming into effect in targeted advertising that I want to dig more into. And we'll see, I think, more guidance as it comes closer. But if, for example, if you run a travel blog, right, if your audience is located in Italy because they're traveling through Italy because they saw your things, like you need to comply. So again, it's always aiming towards being open and transparent with your audience. Like there's not really a downside to trying to comply. That makes sense?
That's great. I love it.
Like I said, open and transparent. Besides being legally required, it's a great way to just build trust with your audience.
Okay. Well, I got a quick question for you too. Yeah. I'm going to be interrupting you a ton here. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, okay. Can we use something like ChatGPT to generate, say, a privacy policy page, GDPR policy statements?
I mean, you could try. You won't know that it's gonna check all the boxes, right? Anything generated by AI is not considered copyright protected. Um, and you could potentially be infringing on copyright depending on how it's going about it. And I'm actually gonna, in just a second, give a list of the things you want to include in your privacy policy, so that might help you better.
Beautiful.
And I do have more to say on AI too, so we will cover this more in a minute. Um,
Perfect.
I do want to point out that, like, even if you think you're not collecting data, pretty much everybody is. If you use Google Analytics, if you're doing email marketing, which I really hope you are because you get to own that platform. Um, if you have a contact form on your site, if you allow comments, if you use any sort of pixel tracking with Facebook or Pinterest, like all those are examples of data collection you might be doing. It's actually pretty hard to blog successfully without collecting data. So, these are things you'll want to make sure are included in your privacy policy. And I will also say with ChatGPT, like, they're not going to know all the different tools you're using. Like, and even if you type it all in, like, is it going to properly explain how you're using it? Like, it just, I can't imagine ChatGPT coming up with one that would work and actually cover you. Like, it would come up with a general, I feel like that's where it's going to start hallucinating. Because that you're going to give it too many variables to really hone in on it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
This one feels to me like the category of where real humans very much shine still.
yes, yes. So things you'll be including in your privacy policy is information that you're collecting, personal and anonymous information that you collect with various tools, information about links to other sites. So where you're like, I link out to other sites. You need to check out their privacy policy. I can't speak for them, is really what that's saying. Cookie policy. So if there's any cookies you're using, that's where everyone's got the pop-up saying, yes, I agree to the, data collection, affiliate relationships, California residents rights notice, just basically their right to like not have their data be sold. Contact information, when the page was last updated, and how long you keep any stored data. Okay, so we will go over all this again at the end of the workshop. So don't worry if this was kind of faster in this part. Hopefully, it's making sense so far. All right, let's go ahead and talk about GDPR. So it came into effect in 2018 out of the European Union. It stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. CCPA is the California Consumer Protection Act. And as I mentioned, there are more and more state-based data privacy acts coming into effect. So let's go over GDPR first, because I feel like it is like the biggest. So it applies to anyone that's in the EU, but also anyone who has an audience in the EU. And there, like I said, there are similar laws requiring the same thing. So if you're like, I know when GDPR first came out, a lot of people were like, well, I'll just block traffic to from the EU. But more and more, the newer laws are saying you can't do that. Like, you can't treat them differently just because they have these rights. So bad idea to do that. Plus, why would you want to like minimize your business? So just kind of keeping that in mind. Basically, it boils down to you should comply. Like I
Yeah.
said, there are more and more. I think the most recent is the Maryland Online Data Privacy Act of 2024. Like, it's passed legislature. I don't know if it's been signed yet. I wasn't able to update that. All right. So, what do you actually need to do to comply with all these different data privacy laws? So, first, you need a privacy policy. Okay. One of the biggest ways GDPR really rocked the blogging world in 2018 was with email marketing, because it used to be you give me your email address, I give you a freebie, we're good. But GDPR said you basically can't do it like that. They're like, no, no, no. Just because they're giving you the email address for the freebie, not to be on your list, right? So the consent you get when at the time of collecting the email address needs to be for whatever it is you plan to do with that data. So for example, it kind of shifted where you could be like, people on my newsletter get access to freebies like this. If you want it, join my newsletter here. Right. So that's kind of you're changing what the offer is. The offer is actually the newsletter, not the freebie, but they do still get the freebie, if that makes sense. Um, so that's where, or people start adding checkboxes. That's another way. But if you're doing a checkbox, you still have to deliver the freebie, even if they didn't join the email list. So there's a lot of different ways you can work with GDPR in terms of email marketing, but it does require making sure you're getting the consent to email them with what it is you're emailing them. All right. And then you're also going to need to have a cookie banner, basically, that explains all the different, cookies and data and stuff where we've all seen them. Every website has it where it's like, yes, I agree, no, I don't, or just the minimum and all that jazz. Okay, so moving on to CCPA. California, it was like one of the first big state-based ones here in the US, and it's very similar to GDPR. And you only really need to do a couple more things to comply with CCPA. So basically, have a contact page on your site. And actually, back then they were like, you might need a toll-free number, but it's really you just need an email address. It needs to be, bloggers have really been excluded from this requirement for the most part. Update your privacy policy and add a "Do not sell my personal information" page to your site and link to it on your homepage. So it's really just they have this special "Do not sell my personal information" rights, which is I'm seeing more and more in the new state-based laws. But I feel like in most instances, most bloggers aren't selling it. It's just a matter of, in some cases, does advertising count as selling your personal information? Then you'll want to kind of work with your whatever advertising company you're with. But there are some things you shouldn't do. You shouldn't block traffic from locations that have data privacy laws, and you shouldn't charge different rates for those that do or do not exercise their rights. Basically, don't discriminate against people because of where they live. Okay, moving along quickly. The basics of copyright and trademark. So trademark protects a brand's reputation and informs the customer like who it is. Basically, it's like you know what you're getting when you buy, right? So, for example, if you buy Nike shoes, you know what you're getting. You know what the swoosh means. You know it's going to be quality. You know it's probably going to run narrow. Um, and just because names are the same or similar, if they are in completely different fields, doesn't mean they can't both be there. So there's Dove chocolate, but there's also Dove soap. They're the same name, but they're very different products, and you're not going to get them confused. And both are trademarked. Okay, just because they have the same name, if they're different categories, because category really does matter in trademark. And like I said, trademark is actually a very specialized area of law, and it is not a DIY area. Like copyright, you can kind of DIY, but trademark don't, because it is so specialized in making sure you're choosing the right categories that you're trademarking. So just trademarks, it's protecting a brand so that people know what they get and it's not getting confused with like something inferior. Okay. All right. Copyright. And I will say trademark and copyright both apply automatically. You don't have to register, but there's a lot of benefits to registering. Okay. Copyright protects something you've created from being stolen. And this is why AI created content isn't copyright protected off the bat, because you didn't create it. Copyright is something you also want to make sure that you are being respectful of other people's copyright. I see this a lot in roundups, like recipe bloggers and stuff. You can't just take an image, even if you're linking and giving credit to their recipe. Now, that being said, a lot of food bloggers and whatnot in their terms and conditions will say, hey, because they don't want to deal with a ton of emails dealing with this. They're like, hey, you can use one image from my recipe with proper attribution, with link to my site without asking, right? Like they kind of license it out that way.
Oh, that's so interesting. I love that.
So check terms and conditions before you bug somebody. So like I said, you don't have to register to claim, but you can't use the R. So you can use the TM, you can use the C in a circle, but you can't use the registered mark. And if you're not sure if you can use something, like just ask. When in doubt, get permission. And if someone's stealing stuff from you, there's actions you can take if it's actually your copyright. Like I said, you don't have to have registered it, but by registering if someone tries to steal it or steals it, you can get statutory damages. So you don't even have to like prove that you lost money or something. You can just, if you prove that they stole your copyright and it's registered, you're entitled to statutory damages. Okay.
I got
All right.
a quick question for you on trademarks. So, how do you know? I'll bring this question up. How do you know when it's worth it to take that kind of formalized process and actually get a trademark for your blog or your online business name? Because I would assume this is not an inexpensive thing to do either.
No, trademark is pricier. Um, so trying to trademark a blog, well, yeah, trademark. I'd say when you can afford it, it's worth it, right? Because it really does protect your rights. That being said, if you're not going to take action against anyone who might infringe on your trademark, don't bother. Because if you're not protecting your trademark, it loses its status, basically. Because it sets a standard, they could go to court and be like, well, that person infringed on their trademark, they knew about it and they didn't do anything. That tells you, they're like, yeah, you're not protecting your mark, so therefore we're not going to grant it anymore, kind of a thing. So if you're not willing to like defend your mark, then don't bother getting it trademarked.
Cool.
Um,
That's
but
super
yeah,
interesting. Thank you.
and again, that is such a specialized area of law and is not my area. So that is just what I know, basically.
Cool.
um, yeah, very specialized area. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about legal requirements of email marketing and list building. Specifically, we're going to talk a bit about the Can Spam Act. So, why email marketing services are important? Why can't you just use Gmail, right? So, Can Spam Act requires people to be able to opt out from receiving emails from you. So that's where all the email marketing services at the bottom, they have the like unsubscribe button, which you can't do with Yahoo or Gmail or whatever. It also is what requires you to use a real address. So no fake addresses, people. Please don't do that to yourself. Um, there's also GDPR and just practicality, right? Like it's not practical if you have a huge email list to use like Gmail. GDPR is going to require certain things as well. Like I said, the proper consent and being able to demonstrate that. So um, really, you need to get consent, and double opt-in doesn't always work. So let me kind of explain what I mean by that. So I mentioned already, I use ConvertKit. I love ConvertKit. Used it for most of my blogging career. Um, they were created by bloggers for bloggers. So it was really great back in 2015, 2016. When people opted in, their like confirmation email, when they clicked to download the thing, it would be the double opt-in, basically. But with GDPR, as I mentioned, you have to get consent for the thing. So if they didn't consent to be on the email list and they're clicking to get they just consented to get the freebie and they click the freebie, they're not really double opting into your list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
um, so double opt-in is great for a healthy list, but don't count on it as your means of consent is what I'm really saying there. Can Spam also requires you to use a real address. You guys can use a PO box. You can ConvertKit lets you use their address, but do not put a fake address. You are in violation of Can Spam if you're using a fake address. I understand not wanting to put your home address. Same. I use a PO box. Lots of people will use on ConvertKit will use their email address. I swear, I'm not like get ConvertKit. Stick with what you have. It's a pain to change, but see if maybe whatever tool you're using offers that sort of functionality as well. Okay. All right. Let's dive into terms and conditions, what they are, and if you need them. So, terms and conditions are your way of saying my house, my rules, right? Like my site, my rules. You don't like it? Peace out. It also just lays out various policies you have regarding payments and refunds. If you have a membership site and setting up accounts and how they can use your products for personal use only, if there's any sort of other license granted when they purchase, things like that. It's really setting the ground rules for your business. Now, if you're not selling digital products or something, you may not need terms and conditions. It just kind of depends. If you're like only monetizing through affiliate marketing and ads, terms and conditions might not be a like must have for you. Okay. It's also a great place to include disclaimers in terms of limiting your liability. Um, you're not perfect, neither is your site. You don't want to get sued because you didn't tell your reader that, right? We're human.
I don't know. I
Stuff may
might take that personally.
not. We're human though. Stuff gets, especially now, like stuff is moving so quickly. You might not be able to update it right away. Might be out of date. There might be typos. This is what I'm talking about. Okay. It's also another thing you can do in terms of conditions is decide where, if someone's going to come after you, you can say where that's going to happen, right? So I'm located in Washington State. If someone's going to sue me, I don't want to have to go deal with that in Virginia. They're going to sue me, they have to come here. So if they're going to pursue a legal course of action, you can say where that action should take place. So that is an important, where you're going to throw down, basically. If you're going to come after me, you got to come do it here.
Where's the boxing ring?
Exactly. And then a little bit more in terms of disclaimers and limiting liability. So we talked about like disclosures in regards to affiliate disclosures. That's saying, hey, just so you know, this is saying, I told you it might not work. Don't blame me. um, so they're your way of telling your readers that you're not responsible for something, if they decide to take action on what was in your content, right? It's slightly different from disclosures. Disclosures, you're trying to inform the reader of something. For example, your relationship to a product. Here, you're saying, hey, like for example, my personal finance site can be like, hey, if this budget hack didn't work for you, like this is just from my own experience. I'm not an expert. Don't, it's up to you. Use discretion, sort of a thing. All right. And this is where professional, non-professional disclaimers can come in as well, right? So in that instance, hey, I'm not any sort of financial expert. This is from my own experience. You may need to talk to a financial expert, would be an example of a non-professional disclaimer. A professional disclaimer would be like the one I did at the beginning, where I'm like, hey, I'm not your lawyer. This is educational and informational purposes only. So you're not offering any specific advice because you don't know their specific situation. And so it's just covering you're behind in terms of don't, you might need to like actually get specific help with this. I don't know your situation. This is general information. This is what I've learned and I'm sharing. Some other things you might do is an earnings or testimonial disclaimer. So earnings disclaimers are, I don't know if they're as popular now, income reports. They used to be really popular. So if you see them, hopefully they have an earning disclaimer where it's basically saying, hey, I can't guarantee you're going to get the same results. Same with the testimonial disclaimers, right? Because the success of a customer or whatever depends not just on the content, but on the actions they take and so many other factors that you can't guarantee that someone's going to get the exact same results as someone who gave a testimonial does. So,
yeah, this was one that I was like very careful about too on my blog back when I used to do income reports, was like just being really clear, like, hey, these results also aren't typical. Like this,
yeah,
what
results
you're
may vary.
seeing is like the culmination of 8 years of effort. So
Uh-huh.
I think the income reports thing, one reason I stopped is that it kind of does set people up for disillusionment or like misaligned expectations. And I find that a really interesting one.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't think they're nearly as popular as they used to be. Maybe I just aren't looking for them. Maybe I'm just not looking for them as much as I used to be. I don't know.
Yes, if you're gonna do it, be smart about your disclaimers.
Yes. Okay. So let's chat for just a quick second about if you need to be an LLC or any other kind of corporate entity. So an LLC is a limited liability company. It's state based. So if you're in the US, this is where we're really talking to you. And it varies state by state. Basically, for single member LLCs, they're generally taxed as a sole proprietor, so it wouldn't likely change your taxes. You can opt to be taxed as a C corp, and that's questions for accountants, which is not me. Um, but basically, the benefit of doing a legal entity would be if the company gets sued, generally, so long as you're keeping separate personal and business finances, they can't go after your personal assets. Like I said, it requires separation of your finances from business and personal. Um, but it's protecting basically your personal assets. So if you own a house or something, you don't want anyone to be able to go after it. That could be something you might want to consider. Um, so, what about non US residents? You might consider it. So, there are some states that make it easier for non US residents to set up an LLC in the US. And one of the reasons you might consider it is credibility. And depending on where you're located, sometimes like PayPal won't work with you or something. And that kind of gives you a way in to do that. That being said, if you have an LLC or you're thinking about starting one, there is a new BOI reporting requirement. It stands for beneficial owner information. So the aim of it is to really stop shady people doing shady business stuff. So I don't think it really applies like that. Descriptor doesn't apply to most of the bloggers I know, but this law still does. So it came into effect January 1st of this year. And corporation filing can vary greatly state to state. So one of the other kind of aims of this law is to have just a federal standard for incorporation practices. So any businesses registered in the U.S., so as an LLC, or even if you're foreign based but you have an LLC, you will need to file a BOI report. So it's not scary. It's actually really easy. Chances are you're the head honcho of your business, right? You're not sharing profits. Maybe you have a partner, in which case it's two people. So you don't need to include all the information of your employees. It's who owns the business, basically, who is benefiting from the business. And you'll need to provide in this report name, date of birth, address, unique identifying number. So it could be passport, driver's license, whatever, and an image of that. The BOI report info is considered sensitive information and it is not made publicly available. Okay, it is only going to be directly available to authorized government authorities and subject to regular safeguards and controls. There's regular auditing, that sort of a thing. When to file and any particular consequences. So if your business was established before January 1st of this year, so if you last year or before, you have until January 1st of 2025 to file your report. I think it took me about 10 minutes to file mine, by the way. It's super easy. We'll get more into that in just a second. If you formed your business this year in 2024, then you have 90 days from the date of your formation to file your BOI report. And Secretary of State websites are supposed to mention this when you're filing. When I renewed in April, I don't recall seeing anything on this, but like I said, it varies greatly state by state. Consequences for not filing. So criminal and civil penalties, possibly $500 for each day the violation continues, but it can't be more than $10,000. And imprisonment for not more than 2 years or both. So it takes 10 minutes. It's really not that hard. If you have a business entity in the U.S. that's registered with the state, so LLC, C Corp, S Corp, all that jazz, then you need to get this submitted. So you just have to go to this website. It's fincen.gov/BOI. Again, it's free to file. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. So if you Google BOI filing and you're seeing LegalZoom that wants to charge you however much, you don't need to do that. Okay. Unless you have a really complicated business structure, or you have a board and there's lots of owners, in which case you may want to hire someone to help you with this. If it's really just you, that's pretty easy. Okay.
So you mentioned LegalZoom. So I wanna ask this question now. Do you have a go-to recommendation for a platform, a service that can help you set up the LLC component and maybe guide you on these kinds of filing requirements? Or is it best to really just do that research and take care of these things yourself these days?
So I have some solutions that I will share at the end.
Beautiful.
Okay. With different ways,
different
routes you can do. Different routes you can do. Okay. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about use of AI. All right. So I think we all are kind of aware, or at least I've mentioned several times, the copyright issues with AI. But the EU actually has written an AI Act that will enter into force 20 days after publication in the official journal, which it was supposed to be published in May or June. I'm not sure if it's been published yet. Like I said, I had a family emergency. I wasn't able to check the updates on all this. So most of the act is focusing on businesses that create AI tools. All right. However, there is one section that I found kind of applicable to bloggers, and it's talking about synthetic content. So first of all, this AI Act, I think it's likely to set the standard similar to the way GDPR is. The EU actually seems to be kind of on top of technology, whereas in the US especially, we're slowly catching up. It's still a bit of the Wild West.
Yeah, it's very head in the sand. We don't want to look at this, otherwise we got to do something about it.
Well, it's also a lot of our legislators don't understand how technology works, unfortunately. So with the AI Act, it may not be required to comply, but again, it goes towards transparency. So there's the section that says a variety of AI systems can generate large quantities of synthetic content that becomes increasingly hard for humans to distinguish from human-generated and authentic content. And so the concern is the significant impact on the integrity and trust in the information ecosystem. An example of this that's specifically mentioned is like deep fakes. So it's just, again, you want to be open and transparent. So if you're using AI, which Ryan and I know are big fans of using AI, you need to make it your own. um, and then it's great to just kind of explain how it is you use AI in your process so that you are claiming your copyright if it is copyright, eligible. Um, and, because if someone thinks it's AI, they can just steal it. Like they can. It's not copyright protected. So basically, it's saying in like the AI Act, it's appropriate to do a disclosure. Basically, if something's been generated or manipulated text to the extent it is published for the purpose of informing the public on matters of public interest, unless the AI generated content has undergone the process of human review and editorial control. So this is where we're saying make it your own. Then you need to like disclose, hey, this was AI generated. So actually a really great example that I do love is this is from Layla at Process Driven, which if you need help figuring out processes, like she's my go-to. So like in addition to transparency and clarity to readers, a disclosure can demonstrate your copyright ownership, right? Because people can scrape that AI generated content without any repercussions, really. So I love that she puts us, hey, this email was drafted with care and occasional typos by me, not AI. Like that is a great example, especially I don't do anything like AI for my email newsletters. I use some AI to help draft a really rough draft of a blog post, but just really clearly pointing out what is AI, what isn't, how it's being used, how it's not is super helpful. Okay. So let's go ahead and recap some of the things you've learned. I know. Thinking back at the very beginning, we learned how to properly disclose relationships, affiliate, sponsored, or otherwise, why GDPR matters, and how to comply. Why you don't necessarily have to file for copyright or trademark, but you may want to. Why you need a privacy policy and what to include in it. The legal requirements of email marketing and list building, what terms and conditions are, and hopefully you kind of have an idea of if you'll need them, what disclaimers are and how to use them to your advantage, how an LLC could be beneficial. Information on if you need to file a BOI report and how to get that done, as well as the deadline. We also then talked about AI disclosures and why you might want to include them. Now, let's talk about putting it all into action. Okay. So what this boils down to is that you're likely going to want to include at least 3 pages on your site: privacy policy, terms and conditions, and a disclosures page. So we saw this before already. As a reminder, this is kind of what your privacy policy should have. Now, I will say WordPress comes with a default privacy policy. And the things that are in white are the things that are included in the default WordPress privacy policy. So it gives you a good place to start. These are the things that you want to make sure you're including in your terms and conditions page. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no WordPress default. Similar disclosures and disclaimers you want to consider: earnings, testimonial, professional, non-professional, general, disclaimer, general limitation of liability, links disclaimer, indemnification policy, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, there is no WordPress default. So here are your options, right? You can hire an attorney, which, guys, I will say, if you can afford it, hiring an attorney is always going to be your best option, right? If your business is established enough that you can afford to hire an attorney, do that. Like that's always going to be the best option. But you obviously want to work with an attorney that's in your jurisdiction and familiar with like the online business world. But there are more and more law firms like that popping up. It is becoming a more popular area of practice. So just keeping that in mind. Alternatively, you could just use the default WordPress privacy, try to chat GPT and keep your fingers crossed. Again, not the best. Cobble together other policies using various sources, which might be copyright protected, and then you'd be violating copyright. Or you can grab easy to use legal templates written by an attorney, and there are a ton out there. I am going to share ones I have, but if you already have some from someone else, like that doesn't mean you have to get mine, although I do think mine are awesome. That understands blogging. So I do want to introduce you guys to my website, Legal Templates Bundle. It includes privacy policy, terms and conditions, disclosures and disclaimers, affiliate terms and conditions templates. So that's like if you sell digital products and you have your own affiliate program, you need to set the rules for it. And it includes all the various clauses and things that we've talked about. It also comes with some really sweet bonuses. So there's the contract templates. So if you get to the point where you're working with a freelance writer or a designer or a Pinterest manager or something like that, I've got a contract template in there for you, which helps just lay out the rules. Even if you're hiring someone that's like a family friend, have a contract, guys. I hired my sister. She was my VA for a while, and we had a contract in place. It's going to protect the relationship, and it's going to make things so much easier. So just have a contract, okay? I also have a video training course on how to make your blog GDPR compliant, as well as a one-click install ConvertKit automation for GDPR consent verification. Template tech tutorial. So the way my templates work is, I mean, you can just pull up the Google Doc and fill in the things. I also have, though, a generator of sorts where you just have to fill out a form and it will pre-populate your information into the templates, making it super quick and easy. I also have training on Straightforward Business Starter and an LLC guide, which will kind of walk you through the things that you'll need to form an LLC, as well as, helping you find the place on your Secretary of State's website to do that. And then finally, the Smart Blogger's Guidebook to the Legal Side of Blogging, which will be getting an update later this year with all the new information rolling out. And anyone that already has it will get the updated version. But it's really, it's kind of like an ebook that covers everything in a little more detail, because obviously we were limited on time today. And then it also included some AI use disclosures templates that kind of, depending on how you use AI, you can kind of decide which disclosure best fits your business. So with my website Legal Templates bundle, you get all of these things. I'm not going to read them out one by one because it's a lot. And there's actually a second page. So the total value actually comes out to, honestly, it could be more than $1,000, but because I started in the personal finance space, I'm so in the like affordability. So for you guys though, so it's normally I price it at $249. But for you guys through Monday, you can save 35%, making it just $161. And there is a payment plan that's available. And actually, for anyone that takes action today to buy it, you can save 40%. So you can save even more. So to get that, all you have to do is you head to the link below. So elizabethstapleton.com/go/RYROB. And that will credit Ryan with any sales as well, just as FYI. That is where you can save 40%. That is only good till 11:59 p.m. Pacific time tonight. And then it will go to the 35% off until Monday. So I'm going to leave that up for a second, and then I'm going to show you guys how to get the free affiliate disclosures made easy, which that information is basically all inside the website Legal Templates bundle as well. But I do want to show you how to get that free, but that you
Beautiful.
can just go.
And I dropped that link in the comments too. So anyone watching, you can just click easily there, and I'll throw that freebie link in too.
Yes. Yeah. And so this expires tonight. But you can get this for free. It's only like $9 if you miss the deadline. It's not overly expensive, but you can absolutely get it for free. Again, you don't have to purchase anything. I like to reward action takers. If you don't have your legal templates, like, I really do recommend checking these out. I think they're a great deal. With that, let's go ahead and do Q&A and stop sharing my screen.
Yes. Cool. Oops.
So yeah.
Wrong screen. There we both are. Okay. Cool. This is awesome. Thank you. And I also want to just like tack onto this. This stuff is a lot. Like there's so much density here that we would just never be able to cover in an hour-ish together. So, I mean, I recommend, this is my philosophy on all things, get the most out of the free stuff that you can. And what I usually learn when I check out like the free things is, there are people who are experts at this, and I can get their courses, their templates, their bundles, often for good deals like what we're trying to bring you here today. So highly recommend Liz's stuff just to make sure you're covered. And I do want to make time for some questions. Sunny, thank you for noticing. I dropped the wrong link in there. I'll fix that here in a second. But I wanted to just kick this quick question over to Liz. Debbie asked a question about the BOIs. So are BOIs for LLCs or for all types of businesses?
It's for any businesses that you're registered with the state. So if you're a sole proprietor and you're not like registered with the state as a business, you're just, but you're still filling out like the Schedule C at tax time and stuff, then you don't have to worry about it. But it's for any business registered with the state.
Cool.
And the BOI website is actually excellent. They have a great guide that can help you figure out, do I really need to file this? And do I, I believe I've linked to it in the workbook. So you can, so that way you're going to the right place and you're not confused by Google, especially Google AI. Oh, God, I hope Google AI isn't trying to tell you BOI stuff. That sounds awful. Um,
Oof. Yeah. I noticed actually they started rolling back the AI overviews quite a lot. Like most queries were displaying something like a week or
yeah,
so ago, and now that's like totally changed.
that's good. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And guys,
Beautiful.
I will say the discount, it will automatically apply when you go to the page. So just FYI.
Awesome. Okay. I want to use this time to ask some questions I've got for you if we got uh not a ton coming into the comment section yet, but please keep your questions rolling. Actually, Sunny's got a good one here. How relevant is the content that Liz offers for people who are from overseas? Sunny being based in Germany. Is this
Sure.
applicable?
Sure. So my bundle is GDPR compliant. It is CCPA compliant. If there's some specific German law, then it's not compliant with that because I don't know about it. It is compliant with the various international standards out there. That being said, if you are, I don't know what kind of blog you do, but for example, even if you are based overseas, if you are part of an affiliate program that's based in the US, you have to comply with the FTC because they have to comply. So a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, like you'll need to comply with the US depending on how, simply because companies you're working with are based there.
Cool. I like that. That's great. I've got two questions for you that I wanted to just let me get my screen up here so I can show you what I'm talking about.
Cool.
Okay. So we're gonna do a little
I
show
cannot.
and tell. We'll see how this goes here. All right. Let's see if we can see my screen. Can we see my screen? I don't think we can see my screen.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Let's add me. How do we share my screen? You know, for someone who has done several of these live broadcasts, I still occasionally have technical issues here. All
Tell me
right.
about it.
We got
Same.
the wrong camera angle again. Here we go. Okay, so perhaps we are just not going to get my screen here, but I wanted to read you.
Okay.
I wanted to read you my affiliate disclaimer essentially and ask
Okay.
you, is this good? Does this suck? Do I need to rewrite this? Because this is
Okay.
an affiliate disclaimer that have encouraged people to copy and use on their
Sure.
own blog. So I want to know if I'm recommending the wrong things.
Okay. What's it say?
Okay. So what I do is I have in bold disclosure colon, and then I say, please note that some of the links below are affiliate links, and at no additional cost to you, I'll earn a commission. Know that I only recommend products and services I've used and personally stand behind. When you use one of my affiliate links, the company compensates me, which helps me run this blog and keep my content free of charge. Is that good?
For the most part, the only like gray area I say there is that you're not supposed to include language that would encourage false clicks.
Okay.
So the part at the end where it's like it helps keep it free, is that going to encourage false clicks? Right now, if you
Cool.
only are doing affiliate programs where they have to purchase, right, to earn a commission, but there's some affiliate programs where you get like 10 cents per click, right? And so that could be a gray area.
Okay. So I'm going to revise my affiliate disclosure and I just dropped that in the comments. So this is a little bit of a tweaked version that
Yeah,
I think is probably going to be more applicable and a
but
bit better
very
for
solid.
people.
I do like it. I think it's really solid. Yeah.
This was one that I had like a lawyer originally help me draft just to make
Yeah.
sure that I was doing this right.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
had a
And it's
little
a gray
personal
area.
flair.
Like the way you worded it, you could keep it as is, but it's generally you don't want to encourage false clicks.
Cool.
Similarly, when you're doing email, the subject line you shouldn't really be using re. I hate it too because it's like implying you already had like an email. Like it's a gray area. It's not like strictly prohibited, but yeah.
Okay. We're just having a great time here today. My camera battery's dying. All the things are changing on us. So we're adapting on the fly. But Renee has a good question here that I want to pull up onto the screen. If I have an affiliate link from a European company, but the network is based in the US, do I need a US compliance as well, or does GDPR cover this case?
Um, GDPR isn't super closely related to affiliate marketing. I would look at the affiliate terms and conditions. So when in doubt of what you can do with your affiliate link and what rules you need to comply, because uh, the company should have compliance with whatever they need to comply with built into their terms and affiliate terms and conditions.
Cool. I like that. No, Sonny, I'm still here. I'm having camera technical issues today. Okay, Liz, I want to ask you about another question, something that I notice often and people often email me about. So, something that I have done on my blog is accept guest posts from people. Are there any special sort of disclaimers that we should use or considerations to take into account when we're taking guest post content that's written by someone else and publishing it on our site?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're not going through any sort of editorial process, which I think most people would, but you would say, hey, this was written, by so and so. I am not responsible for maybe the content included. And that's where you might do a contract of like you're agreeing that this is original content that no one's gonna come after, right? And you can there's lots of tools you can do like to run content through to make sure it's original before you would post it on your site. But yeah, so I mean, always just kind of a general like, hey, this is a guest post. I thought it was really good, but I also want to make clear that I didn't write it, and I may not encompass my views. It may not cover everything and things like that. Basically, I'm not responsible. Don't come after me.
Cool. I dig that one. And I got a follow up for you. So with accepting guest posts, make sure that if your guest authors are including images, make sure that those are stock images, that they're royalty free, because here is something that I've had happen. I have guest posts that are 10 years old, right? And so I
Mhm.
haven't checked on those posts. I haven't updated them in 8, 9, 10 years, right? But occasionally I'll get an email from someone who represents, Ariana Huffington, let's say, and I have an
Yeah.
image of Ariana Huffington from a guest post that someone wrote for me, and they'll say, "Hey, that's copyright infringement." And perhaps you've seen these emails. It feels like a little bit of a scheme, to be honest, where
Uh-huh.
they're trying to reach out and collect $400 or $600 for the use of that image you've been using. How do
Yeah.
you feel about those kinds of scenarios when they pop up?
I'd look really closely at if they're legit or if like you have to, because that does seem a little scammy. Generally, if there's copyright infringement, it's gonna start with like a cease and desist, and then potentially a for the time used with this image, or in order to license this image. But licensing should come with a legal licensing agreement. So if they're just like looking for some money, like I'd be real skeptical. Like, are they who they say they are? Do they actually represent this person who owns the copyright? Um, yeah, I would just be very, I would dig deep.
The way that I handle these emails is actually I just ignore them and I
Yeah.
assume that any legal action is going to require a cease and desist physically mailed to me. Is that a safe assumption? Or is
Cease and
email suffice?
desist, it could be email. If they, if cease and desist, so generally they're going to start with an email. They might eventually graduate to like a certified letter delivery to prove, but it's not necessary if I'm remembering correctly. I Any actual legal action would require like certified mail. Cease and desist is kind of a let's try to avoid actual legal action. Um, so I don't think it's required to be certified mail.
We're
But
getting
and
deep
again,
into the weeds here, but my
and
my
again,
my,
it could be
my intention
that
is
could
how
be the
much do
state.
you care, basically.
There's that, yeah, and it could be like that could be very state by state too. So lawyers only get licensed in specific states. There's 50 states in the U.S. and I did two. So who knows? There could be some that, but generally, cease and desist is to avoid actual legal action. Actual legal action is going to require like certified letter being served, with a service processor, things like that. And they might do a certified letter for cease and desist just to prove that they attempted. It just depends.
Cool. Okay, we got a couple more good questions here. So Dinky Bakers asks, if laws change, we would need to keep up to date with changes. How do you keep on top of this? As this is not my area of skills.
Yeah. So, by either you hire a lawyer or you get templates from a lawyer who then updates things to match the requirements is really the best way. So that's kind of what I got for you. And again, like if you guys are in the position that you can, hiring an attorney is always going to be the best option because they're going to be able to look at your specific situation and make sure you're covered for everything that you need to be covered for. So yeah.
Cool. We got to follow up on this one. Is there such a thing as blogging insurance or similar to cover you if you get in trouble?
Yeah, and I'm sure Ryan, you know this, right? It's called like media insurance. I think is generally, and you can sometimes, depending on your current insurance companies, reach out and ask, hey, do you guys happen to offer media insurance? So yeah, yes, there is.
I am totally blanking right now on the company that I use for this insurance, but if you want to drop me an email to just ryan@ryrob.com, I will remember what they're called. And I want to say it's about maybe $250, $300 a year, something like that.
Yeah,
Like it's not a super expensive policy for me.
yeah. There's like insurance policies for everything. There's insurance policies for like craft bloggers who do markets, right? Like there's yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we're coming up on time. We're a little bit over. So I want to offer up Liz as a resource again. Please go check out her freebies, check out her template bundle that she's offering here. The links to those are in the comments. And for the recorded version of this video, you will also see those in a comment pinned to the top here. But Liz, I want to thank you. And please, how would you like to deal with people who would like to ask you some one-off questions? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Email. I'm terrible on social media. Hello at elizabethstapleton.com. And if you just go to elizabethstapleton.com/resources, I've got all sorts of goodies there. So
Awesome. Cool. Well, Liz, thank you again for joining, and we will see you soon.
all right, thanks for having me.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.